Most of the action in the Gospels takes place in the region around the Sea of Galilee. An extended portion of what's in the Gospels also takes place in Jerusalem, but this covers only a short period of time at the very end of Jesus' life and ministry. Aside from those two locations, there are only a few other places where Jesus travels. One of those places appears only once in Jesus' ministry, but it is there that a crucial conversation happens. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Friday, July 8th, 2022. Call it a road trip. At some point during his ministry in Galilee, Jesus took his disciples and headed north. In terms of distance, it's really not all that far, maybe 20 or so miles as the crow flies, but more like 40 miles by road, and it would have taken at least a full day to make the trip on foot, and maybe a little more. It is the only time we see Jesus head there, to a place once called Caesarea Philippi. But what happens there is so consequential that I wonder if Jesus didn't choose this location for a reason. Caesarea Philippi is in the northernmost reaches of what was and is Israel, but then it was not primarily a Jewish region. It had been populated by both Greeks and Romans, and most of the population there in Jesus' day would have been pagan, that is, non-Jewish. It had been named in honor of Tiberius Caesar and the Tetrarch Philip, the son of Herod. Before Philip gave it this name, it was called Panias, after the Greek god Pan. It was the site of a temple to Pan where people made sacrifices to that god. The setting itself is quite beautiful. The surrounding countryside is agriculture and lush. A spring originates at the site of the ancient temple to Pan, and its waters run clear and cold, eventually merging with two other streams to form the headwaters of the Jordan River, north of where it enters into the Sea of Galilee. The area is also hilly, sitting at the very base of Mount Hermon. So if this wasn't a particularly Jewish area, and it was a day or so away from his usual haunts in Capernaum and around the Sea of Galilee, why did he take his disciples there? Let's listen to Matthew's version of the story to find out. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" They said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. This is a consequential conversation between Jesus and his disciples. Wouldn't it make more sense to have the conversation somewhere more significant to the Jews? Maybe Jerusalem, or at least on the steps or in some corner of a synagogue. I think the answer is deceptively simple, and Matthew tells us in the last sentence. Jesus sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Privacy, anonymity, confidentiality. This was not a conversation he wanted people who could easily recognize him to overhear, at least not yet. Caesarea Philippi may not have been all that far away from Capernaum and the region around the Sea of Galilee, but it had a completely different population. Some people there may have heard about Jesus, but being non-Jews, they wouldn't have considered him to be much of a consequential figure. So here in this place, in the shadow of the ancient temple to Pan, Jesus asks his disciples to come to terms with who he really is, the Messiah. It was important for them to fully digest this, but it wasn't yet time for the rest of the world to know. That would come later. For now, the disciples and the disciples alone needed to know. And what better place to make that secret known than in a place somewhat removed from the crowds who knew him? Sometimes we have to go on a retreat and leave our familiar surroundings to learn the truth. Tomorrow, Jesus heads to Jerusalem. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.